We'll start our refresher webinar for January 2021. Unbelievable. Happy New Year to everyone. And I'm sure, like all of us, we're ready to put 2020 in the rearview mirror. But as we were discussing, events of this past week didn't bode so well for the beginning of 2021. So, you know, it's been a kind of a crazy time, hasn't it? And just getting crazier. So all the more reason to do this. And so first of all, thank you for joining in this webinar and for continuing your own practice, because I think it's, you know, really one of the best ways of keeping our own well, equanimity. You know, we've done some stuff on equanimity, that idea of keeping balanced and even-minded and non-reactive, even in the face of things that really trigger us. And today, we're going to talk about self-kindness and compassion. And this is a topic that I've included on the 6-week classes, which you might remember if you've taken one of those. And I've always found it a little hard to, you know, it's harder to, for some reason, to really get across the idea of what this is all about. So I dug a little bit deeper, and I think I have some pretty good stuff for you today. I hope you find it helpful. And so we'll start with a pause, and the pause will be 3 breaths for a pause, which has an element of kindness in it. So pausing just for a moment, and these pauses really can be done anywhere, anytime, and I think they're one of the most powerful mindful techniques that you can use. Just pausing right now, closing the eyes if you wish, but you don't have to, and just take a really nice deep breath in and out, and just simply feel this one breath that anchors us to the present moment. Take another deep breath and tune into your body and just notice what's the state of your body. What does your body need? Do you need to relax or release something? Just checking in with how the body is. And then the third really nice full deep breath in. And remember to give yourself some kindness. Remember to take care of yourself today. Remember how important this is, that, you know, we're all doing the best we can under very trying circumstances. And so take care of yourself. And that's the third breath. So you can open your eyes if you've had them closed, and real quick, you know, focus on the breath, focus on the body, focus on self-kindness. And that's one of my favorite go-tos for a pause that you can do anytime. So just a quick check-in with how things going. You know, we've been through the holidays and New Year's, and it's been different and harder in some ways. You know, we can't see family as easily and all that. So, and it might have made it harder to do your own mindful practices. I don't know. It was hard for me at times, but at times I've also kind of kept it going in a stronger way. Not exactly sure why, but so how's it going for you? And if you want to use the chat feature, or feel free to speak up, unmute yourself, that's perfectly fine. How's your formal practice going? Are you finding time to sit and do some meditation? And how's your informal practice going? Just finding ways to be mindfully aware as you go through your day, your work day, your regular day. Anybody? What's it been like for you this past month? All right, in the chat, I found time for some formal practice on the days off during the holiday. It felt amazing. Great. You know, I think that's so key. You know, it is hard to do during the workday, And I think that's important that we find time during the workday. But, we do have some time off. Hopefully you had some time off. And I find it easier also in the morning to do it. So when I don't feel like I have to jump right into something. For me, it is a work in progress, but this has helped me sleep easier and better. Every morning before getting into the car, I look around just to enjoy the trees. Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Great example of informal practice as you move about the day. And I'm glad to hear it's helping you sleep. I mean, that's, I think, continuing to be a struggle for a lot of people. So this really can help us sleep better. It's becoming more automatic, especially with a dedicated part of the day set aside. Yeah, I mean, that's the key. You want to make this kind of second nature, like, learning how to drive a stick shift or something. The more you do it, the more it becomes automatic. Trying times, I find some time in my car so I can escape from house noise. Yeah, right. So find wherever works for you. That's really the key. And whether it's in the car or on a walk or in the bathroom, whatever works, that's fine. My cat continually seems to intrude on my Zoom and meditation space. So I just try to accept it as best I can. Have been making time for continuing all the tools learned has made a difference in how I view the daily task. Good. Yeah, it really changes our perspective, doesn't it? Still working on incorporating taking the time I need for me. Definitely feel better, more centered and grounded. See, it's nice when you can feel the outcome of this, when you feel the benefits. More formal and informal are becoming more of a routine. Very good. Feeling more peaceful and centered. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, it really can really help, especially during these trying times. Practicing regularly has actually helped reduce some of my hand tremors. Very nice. Wow, that's great. That mind-body connection is so strong, and it really, I think this does so much to help us with whatever is going on in our mind and in our body. So keep it up. I really didn't have time over the holidays. Well, thank you for sharing that. In the holidays and at other times, it makes it harder. So that's a great segue into today's lesson. I hope you don't beat yourself up about that. And that's kind of part of what we really want to talk about today, is that remembering to be kind to ourselves, and that it is part of mindfulness, and it makes it kindfulness. And that, I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning, when you start meditating, you might have noticed the message to yourself that this is not that easy to do. And that sometimes we find ourselves saying, I'm not good at meditating, or my mind is too active, and, things like that. And so to remember that this is a good lesson in and of itself when we're meditating, to notice those opinions and judgments and evaluations we might have. And at any time, if we're saying to ourselves, not doing this good enough, try to be aware of that, number one, and let that go, number two, and to remember that this is not about doing this, perfectly. This is about doing this as best we can, to fit it in as best we can. And that's really the key there, so that it becomes routine and it becomes a natural skill, and you strengthen the muscle of awareness, so that when things are tough, when times are really trying, like they have been, we can fall back on that and we can use that. And it really does give us a time to step back and not, a time to step back and really take time for ourselves, and to relax and to reset. So this quote here from Tara Brach, a key predictor of whether mindfulness will be rewarding or a struggle is this attitude of friendliness. To get an idea of how mindfulness will work for you, reflect on how you generally treat yourself, especially when you're anxious or stressed. This opens the door to how you can nurture your attitude of friendliness. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of like focus on this in the new year. If you're trying to do a New Year's resolution, there's a lot out there, by the way, in some of the podcasts. The 10% Happier podcast, again, I'll mention them. Dan Harris interviewed Laurie Santos, who has her own podcast, The Happiness Lab, and talking about the psychology of New Year's resolutions. It's very interesting stuff. But the idea that sometimes we set ourselves up for failure and we come up with goals in New Year's resolutions that, you know, that are hard to do, that we may not be successful at. And so when we get to the point we realize we haven't succeeded, we get, you know, down on ourselves, and it's easy for to kind of beat ourselves up. And so with mindfulness, what I hope to show you in kind of today's lesson is that this really is a way of simply uncovering the best parts of ourselves. It's not so much a self-improvement project, and I'll kind of get more into that in a few. And we're going to do 2 meditations today. I'm going to try to fit 2 in. But so this idea that self-compassion is the same thing as self-kindness and treating ourselves like a best friend. And, you know, a lot of this stuff is based on the work of Kristin Neff, who is a psychologist, researcher, done a real lot of work. And there's been a whole bunch of studies on this, by the way. Wanted to point that out, that some of the studies even show that when we're kind to ourselves, we're better able to achieve our goals. So in other words, instead of focusing on a goal like I should, I don't know, lose weight or quit smoking or, you know, those kinds of things, typical New Year's goals, maybe focusing on meditating more or being better to ourselves and taking time for ourselves, because the studies and the evidence actually do show that when we do that, we're more likely to reach our goals. And many studies show that self-love, self-compassion, and kindness are better ways to go when we're trying to get things done and lead to a happier life. So there's a lot of research out there that support this. So we're not just kind of doing this kind of as a, you know, it sounds really nice and we should be good to ourselves. It actually works. So that's important. There's a real good article that I have in the slides that I'll send out to you. And while I'm thinking of it, if you want the slides, make sure you put in the chat notes that you would like them, and I'll make sure I will send them to you. So Kristin Neff did this work on that, you know, our whole world is so achievement oriented and so focused around, you know, getting this and getting that and getting a great job and a good salary and having a great house and car and all those kinds of things. And that it can really kind of like, you know, make it hard for us. It's the belief that, you know, if we don't have those things, we're not measuring up and we're not good enough. So, you know, this just is from this article that I'll reference later by Emma Seppala, I'm not sure how to say her name. And she suggests that replacing self-esteem with self-compassion may have far superior implications for our mental health and well-being. So research shows that when we lose, or in other words, when we're not measuring up, we tend to feel highly self-critical, which adds to our own misery. Faced with criticism, we become defensive and we may feel crushed. Mistakes and failure make us feel insecure and anxious, so we give up early when we face a future challenge. Down the road, this type of competitive self-esteem has been tied to larger societal problems such as loneliness, isolation, and even prejudice. So what Kristin Neff did was, as she began to look into these, is that realized that the Buddhist concept of self-compassion, that you value yourself not because you've judged yourself positively and others negatively, but because we're intrinsically deserving, and that we're deserving of care and compassion like everyone else. I mean, everybody wants to be happy. So where self-esteem leaves us powerless and distraught, self-compassion is the heart of empowerment, learning, and inner strength. So this is from that article that I'll reference later, that you can read the whole article. It's really quite good. But just to give you the 3 elements of self-compassion, and this is kind of wordy, this is also in the article, and you're going to see how this plays out in the first meditation. So first element is self-kindness. So this idea that, instead of getting down on ourselves and being hard on ourselves, when we notice that, and so of course that's part of it, is noticing it, being aware of it. So mindfulness is one of the elements, that we give ourselves some kindness, and that we treat ourselves the same way that we would treat a best friend. Common humanity is another part of it, that we realize that we're not the only people suffering. We all suffer. As human beings, we suffer. And usually, well, not usually, whenever we're feeling suffering or struggle, there's someone else who's feeling that very same way. And we're really never going through this alone, even though it feels that way. We're really not doing that. So part of the exercise is to remember that we're not doing this alone. And in fact, when you think about support groups and things like that, of course, that's why they work. And we've seen that in some of our work, as we work with people on the front lines who are going through very difficult times, that they find out that they're not alone. And many of their colleagues and peers are feeling exactly the same way they are. And so the third element is mindfulness, and so that we become more aware, and we acknowledge it when we are suffering. We recognize it. We pay attention to it rather than try to get away from it or deny it or suppress it. We try to, with kindness, acknowledge it. And if you remember, there's an exercise called RAIN that I've taught in earlier classes. It's really the same thing. RAIN is recognize the struggle or the stress. The A is to allow it. The I is to investigate it with kindness. And the N is to be nurturing to ourselves. So that's RAIN, and it really kind of brings all this stuff together. So what I'd like to do now, I've talked enough, and I'd like to kind of go through this meditation with you, okay? So this is based on the work of Germer, who's actually a colleague of Kristin Neff, and it is a meditation that I think will last around 6 or 7 minutes. So find a position that's comfortable. You should be very able and ready to kind of adopt a position that's relatively upright, one that you can feel alert and awake in the moment, but also relaxed and comfortable as we go through this. And first, just simply be aware of your breathing. And if you'd like, take a couple of nice deep breaths to really feel the breath where you notice it in your body. And on the out breath, let your body relax and settle and arrive here and sink into the chair. And on the in-breath, just really feel that fresh air coming in, bringing us vitality and uplift. And just breathe for a few moments, just establishing that core of mindfulness, allowing the breath to be natural and relaxed. And remember that the breath is an anchor, so if you become distracted or your mind wanders, simply come back to the breath as a way to reconnect with the present moment. It's also an anchor or a home base if you become a little bit, if feelings arise that are difficult. Because I am going to ask you to bring up some kind of a feeling of stress, not a big one, but so we can always return to the breath as a way to kind of stabilize ourselves. All right, so now having established this mindful base through our breathing in our body, think of a situation that is causing you stress. Could be health related or a relationship or something at work, or something that a friend or a family member is struggling with, and you have feelings or empathy for that person. Now keep this kind of mild to moderate, kind of a 3 or a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. Nothing that's really super stressful. Bring this to mind and into your heart as best you can. And allow yourself to feel into the situation, to get in touch with it. What people are involved or places, maybe words that are being said as you feel this. And just internalize it for a moment. Allow yourself to feel it in your body. Allow yourself to feel the discomfort associated with it. And so this exercise has 3 parts to it. And the first part is the mindfulness part, just simply to recognize that this is a moment of suffering. So validating this discomfort, maybe using language that works for you. Something like, this hurts. This is a tough situation. Or ouch. Just to validate how you feel while you're experiencing it. Okay, so just being with it. Allowing yourself to just be with it through the body. The second part is to remind ourselves that suffering is part of living. Everyone suffers. The circumstances may be different, but as human beings, we all suffer. Suffering is part of life. And that others may be struggling just like me. And this is how it feels to be in a situation like this. So finding language for yourself that kind of captures this common humanity. I'm not alone. Others feel this way. Whatever it is. Now, the third part is reminding yourself, and you can go back to the situation if you need to refresh that. And again, feel free to also feel your breathing again as we do this. And as you reconnect with it, you might even put a hand over your heart or on some other part of your body as an expression of kindness to yourself. And with these words, may I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need. May I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need. Or even just identify what I need. And imagine you have a friend with the same problem and struggling in very much the same way, and you have just a few moments, and you would like to share a few words of kindness. What words would you use? Imagine that your friend was going to remember these words and that they would echo throughout the day. What words would bring some comfort, some consolation to your friend? And now see if you can begin to offer yourself the very same words. Open your heart and whisper the very same words, perhaps that you need to hear, offering yourself these words of kindness. Or maybe there are other phrases, such as, may I accept myself as I am? Or may I forgive myself? May I be strong? May I be patient? May I live in love? Offering yourself what you need. Just sitting with that for a moment, seeing how that feels. Remembering, being mindful, the 3 steps are being mindful of what it's like to feel suffering. The second step is the common humanity that we all go through this. We all feel this in much the same way. And the third is that we send ourselves some messages of kindness and comfort. Take care of ourselves. And so with that, let's bring ourselves back to our breathing, back to our body in the chair, as we begin to finish that meditation on self-compassion. And when you're ready, opening the eyes if you've had them closed, and finishing that meditation for today. So I'd love to hear how that was. Feel free to put maybe a word or two in the chat feature. Similar to loving kindness meditations that we've done in the past, where we typically send messages of care and kindness to others, and we often include ourselves in them. So that's another practice that you can do. And there will be, if you go to our meditation page, there are links on that as well. I don't actually have any self-compassion meditations on there, I think, that are working. But later on in the slides here, I'll have several links to other self-compassion. There's several different kinds that you might like. So very helpful, very peaceful, powerful. I have my mantra for the year. Good, excellent. So I want to turn to this quote here. And I mentioned this before. Meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and becoming something better. It's about befriending who we already are. So it's this kind of uncovering it's not a self-improvement project. It's an uncovering, and these words are from Susan Piver, who's another meditation instructor, and she's has her own, I think it's called the Open Heart Project. And for her, the theme is how we can create a better relationship with ourselves. And so in this interview that I saw with her by Dan Harris, she says, well, he asked her, how does meditation help? And she says she thinks it helps better than anything she's ever come across, and kind of turns the whole thing on its head, kind of like what I was saying before about how self-esteem and the idea that we're always trying, in our culture, trying to achieve, and that whole idea, it's sort of like non-striving, So it doesn't start with the assumption that there's something wrong with us, that we need to change or fix anything. It's not that at all. It starts with the assumption that there's nothing wrong with you, and that if you relax and see that who you are is completely whole and worthy, that's enough. That's all you need. It dispenses with the self-aggression that arrives with a new year or a New Year's resolution that brings up this idea that we need to fix something that's wrong. Okay, so meditation supports you in what you can truly be confident in right now, in the moment, including all your brilliance and your difficulties. Isn't that something? I mean, that's such a great way to kind of, I think, look at this. So you'll see how some of this works in the last meditation, but I want to point this out here. There are three videos that you might like to look at from the slides, a couple from Kristin Neff, and then one from a positive psychology website. And that these are the practices, these are different self-compassion meditations that you might try of varying lengths. The second one is very similar to the one we just did, Germer. So that's kind of a repeat where I learned that. And Tara Brach has one. Then there's one kind of from different life stages. It's kind of interesting. You sort of see yourself as a baby and as a younger child and as a teen, I think. And that's kind of an interesting one. And then there's a brief 5-minute one that you might try. So, and then the informal practice that you might think about doing is a walking loving kindness meditation. So all that really means is that as you're walking, if you're doing a meditation, paying attention to the walking, you might also introduce phrases of loving kindness as you're doing that. And that's a great way to kind of bring it into a movement-oriented meditation. All right, so let me go back. I think I missed something. All right, well, I'll keep this here. And the meditation that I'd like to do now is a meditation by Sharon Salzberg. And I've been trying to find out, she often has a meditation challenge in February. And I went to her website to find out if she's doing it, but I don't see that it's there. So, but if you want to check, you might do that. And I'm going to put something out in an email, so be on the lookout for that too if you want that. I find these challenges to be very helpful in strengthening my own practice. So, so you can do that if you like. I've done one. We have it on the YouTube channel, but they're great ways to kind of just really strengthen your own practice. But this last meditation, again, based on the work of Sharon Salzberg, and this is again from that 10% Happier Challenge. So let's, well, just as way of introduction first, we tend to ruminate on the things that we regret and the mistakes we've made, right? But this kind of meditation and self-compassion can really broaden our perspective and redirect our attention away from that and remember the basic goodness and self-worth that we have. So remember, the point is not to deny our mistakes. We're not trying to cover them up or get rid of them. But here's really the point. The point is not to deny our mistakes, but to understand that if we keep rehearsing them or analyzing them or creating stories around them, you're going to be reinforcing the pain and alienation that you have already caused from that. Okay, so when you can recognize and reflect on even one good thing about yourself, you're building a bridge to kindness and caring. Standing in that place increases our ability to look honestly and directly at whatever is difficult and gives us energy and the courage to move forward. All right, so that's just by way of introduction. All right, so let's do this meditation, and that'll bring us to just about the end of our time during the webinar. So again, sit in a position that you're familiar with, that's comfortable for you, a good meditative posture. Letting the eyes close or being slightly open if you like. And noticing the breath as it moves in and out of the body. And just find that place where the breath is clearest or strongest, and just allow yourself to rest. And see if you can feel just this one breath, without concern for what's gone by or what will come, just this breath. Now, bring to mind one thing you've said or done recently that you feel was kind or good. It doesn't have to be big or newsworthy. Maybe you smiled at someone, or maybe you let go of your annoyance in the store or in traffic or at work. Maybe you were generous or thanked someone. Just bring to mind one small thing. And remember, it's not conceit or arrogance to consider these things. It's nourishing and replenishing to take delight in the good that moved through us. Or you might think of a quality or a skill in yourself that you like or appreciate. Or perhaps you're enthused about helping someone do something or learn something new, or just helping someone. Or perhaps you're practicing patience towards a difficult neighbor or coworker. Let's pause here and check back in with the feeling of the breath. Feeling just this one breath in and out. Using the breath as that anchor, our home base. And if you still find yourself in any way caught up in self-criticism, turn your attention to the mere fact that you have an urge towards happiness. And there's kindness and beauty in that. And simply recall that all beings want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. Never feel ashamed of your longing for happiness. Recall that this is your birthright. Seeking happiness is not the problem. Sometimes it's the way we seek happiness that's the problem. Now, if any impatience or judgment surface, don't feel you've failed. This is entirely natural. Simply allow that negative reaction to ebb as a wave on the beach, and see if you can return to the positive contemplation of yourself, bringing to mind that good quality or that good thing or that kindness that you offered to someone. And if you like, you might even bring a message of loving kindness in the traditional way. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you find care and connection. And sending that message to yourself as well. May I be safe. May I be happy and healthy. May I be free from suffering. May I find peace and care and connection. And before I close the meditation, just noticing how this feels. Your mind and your body and your heart. Just paying attention to what this feels like. And remember to bring this quality of awareness, this way of being with ourselves, into the rest of our day and days as best you can. And try to remember to bring this habit of self-kindness into our mindfulness practice as best you can. And so perhaps just reconnecting with your body in the chair and the room around you, opening the eyes. You might feel free to stretch a little bit, move a little bit as we finish that meditation on kindness and compassion. So thank you. Thank you very much. I see a couple of good chats here. Jim Chernesky writes in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits, he talks about the 7th habit being sharpen the saw, the analogy that just like you can't do a good job cutting wood if you don't take the time to sharpen the saw, at the same time you can't be your best as a spouse, parent, a friend, if you don't take time for yourself physically and emotionally. Yes, that's great. It's sharpening our saw. This is exactly what we're doing here. This falls right in line with that thinking. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, if you want the slides, let me know. I see some of you have done that. I'm happy to send them out to you. I'll try to notice who's been on the call anyway and send them. And I hope you have found this helpful, and I wish you all the best in the new year. Hopefully it's a lot better than last year, but you never know. It's still going to be challenging, I'm sure, in some ways. So keep your practice up, and thank you so much for practicing with me today. And I wish you all the best health and happiness and enough of everything that you need next year, or this year rather.